Hi, it's Jennifer with Jennifer at Home, and I'm so happy you're here today to join Allan and I to make some super wonderful brisket on our TRAEGER Ironwood smoker grill.
All right, thank you for joining us here at Jennifer at Home. We got a special episode tonight. We are going to cook something on our new smoker. And Jennifer's here. She's just right behind the camera. She'll be in here with us in a little while. You want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone.
So, we picked this brisket up last night, and I have been wanting to cook a brisket on the new smoker. So, this is a USDA Choice Angus beef brisket. It was the last one that our grocery store had. So, we are going to do that. We're going to make the marinade, the seasoning kit for it here in just a second. And then we will put this on the smoker. Matter of fact, we're going to put it on tonight, and it will cook most of the night. I'll set some alarms and get up in the middle of the night, and I'll bring you with me. And then tomorrow, hopefully for lunch or early dinner, we will be enjoying this. So we will get started, and thanks for joining us. So the recipe that I'm going to make, I'm going to do what's as close as I can get to a Texas style brisket. Texas style seasoning normally is just salt, coarse ground salt or sea salt, and coarse ground black pepper. We're going to throw a couple extra things in it that we really like the taste of in our barbecue. So basically we're going to start with equal parts of salt and black pepper. So I am going to start with a half a cup of each, and then it'll be 2 tablespoons each of, we're going to put some Cajun seasoning in it, onion powder, garlic powder, and paprika. So I'll mix these, I'll pour these out, then we'll mix them all together, make sure I have enough. And then we will open the brisket. We have to do some trimming. There's a lot of fat on these things, and there's quite a process to do it. So I'm gonna go with about 1 to 2 tablespoons of the onion. I think I'm gonna go about 1.5 of that. Jennifer and I both like a little spice in our barbecue, so I am going to go with probably 2 tablespoons of Cajun. Back in here with 2 tablespoons of garlic. So I'm just using regular garlic powder. We are not using garlic salt because we will already have enough salt with our kosher salt. And what we're trying to achieve on this, besides really getting a nice flavor to the meat, is we are trying to help contribute to the dark brown crust that we're going to form. So I'm going to get this mixed up, and then we'll load it into the shaker bottle. You can see we've got a pretty good ratio of salt and pepper, and then the other spices will just help enhance the flavor. So what I'm doing is I'm transferring this to a shaker bottle. This is actually a bottle that used to have black pepper in it. So I washed it all out, and I use it for my barbecuing. That way I can mix up our own seasonings, and then I can put it in a shaker bottle, make sure it's good and mixed up, and then I can because it does have the lid with the little holes on the top, so I'll be able to shake it right out and put it all over the meat. Okay, so we are going to get this opened up. We're going to trim it all up. There's a lot of big hard pieces of fat that aren't any good, and they will not render away when it's cooking. And it's going to be on the smoker for probably 12, 14, 16 hours. So we're going to get started on this, and we'll do a little step-by-step along the way. So I am going to trim this up. This piece right here, this is really hard fat. So we're going to trim that up. We're going to trim all along this edge, and then we're going to trim the bottom pieces up here just a little bit. Then we'll flip it over, and we're going to do some trimming on the back side as well. We won't have to do a whole bunch there, but we want to get this all nice and cleaned up so that we have all the bad fat gone, and the good fat will stay there, and it'll make the meat nice and juicy. Okay, so we're gonna take this edge off. You can see the meat is it was kind of gray there. That's just from oxidation from when the butcher originally cut it, and it's machine cut. That's what my research has told me. So when they're processing this, a machine has cut all of this versus somebody doing it by hand. So that's why we're gonna trim it up by hand, make this a better presentation, and it's gonna make it a nicer piece of beef to cook and everything. So you can see right now, the grain of the meat runs this way. And brisket generally is a little tough unless it's cooked the right way. So what we're gonna do is right here on this point, so when this is all cooked, you're not gonna be able to see the direction that the meat's going. So what we're gonna do is, when we cut it to serve it, we're gonna wanna go like this. So we're gonna cut a little notch right here off of the corner, and that will remind us when this is all good and cooked that we're gonna start here, and we'll trim and carve the meat all the way to here. This is some of that real hard fat that I said we were gonna take off. This will not cook down, it will not render, it will not contribute to making the brisket any more tender. So we're just gonna shave these off. We'll go through and clean everything off here. You can see how thick this is. So what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna get down in here, and I'm probably gonna get a smaller knife out here, and we will trim all of that out. Pretty much got most of the fat off of this side. There's still a little bit. I'll take a little bit more and fine tune it. But you can see we pulled this real big piece out of here. So a brisket's got two different pieces. This is the point, and you can pretty much see where I've got this groove. So this is your point section, and the two pieces of meat overlap each other, the two muscles. And this is the flat. So we're gonna flip this over, and we're going to work on the back side a little bit. Pretty much we will not have to do a whole lot on this side, because this side will be, we just need to get it down to just about a 1/4 inch of fat. So, and we'll trim it up just a little bit. You can see here on this side it's pretty thick. So we're going to trim that up, and we'll work on this. I pretty much have this all trimmed up as much as I'm going to do, and we'll flip it over again. You can see the back. We did leave some of the fat on here because it's perfectly fine. We don't need to take all of that off. We're going to cook this on the fat side up. There's a lot of different recipes out there that says whether you put the fat side up, the fat side down. The advantage of the fat side down is if your heat source is on the bottom and it's coming up, it protects the meat. Then there's also theory that if the fat side is up, as this fat is rendering, all those juices, kind of soak down through the meat. So we will be cooking ours. We're going to try it. We're going to do fat side up today. So we are going to transfer this into a pan, and then we're going to start putting the seasoning mix on. To get started, you usually have to have some kind of a binder that will hold the mix. So you can use a variety of different things. You can use water, you can use apple juice. Some people use yellow mustard. Today we're going to use just a little bit of apple juice, and you don't need very much. We're just basically getting the surface wet, and we're going to start with a pretty high. We're going to start shaking this pretty high. Now we're going to season the side that's going down on the bottom of the grill first. That way we don't keep flipping it over and over and over, and you have to be pretty generous with the seasoning. This is a big piece of meat, and it needs as much seasoning as we can give it. So now we've got a very generous coating of our dry rub on here. You do not rub it, you pat it. We're going to get all that seasoning down in there, and we're going to let this sit for probably 20 minutes to a half an hour. That way the moisture in the meat starts to join with the seasoning, the rub that we put on the top, and that way when we take it and we put it over in the pan, all of our seasoning doesn't just dump off. So we'll be back in just a second. So we've let this sit for quite a while, and we're going to go ahead and flip it over now, and then we're going to start seasoning the other side. So just like the other side, I sprayed some apple juice on here before we got going. Now I'm just going to open this flap and put a little bit of seasoning down in there. We're just going to cover all of the meat just like we did the other side. And then we'll let it sit for a little while, let that spices and the moisture absorb, kind of set a little bit. And then we're going to put it on the tray, and we are actually, it's early evening, late afternoon right now, and I know this is going to take, it's going to take 6 to 7 hours, because our first goal, once we get it on the smoker, we'll preheat the smoker. We're going to put this on, and it's going to take probably 6 hours, because the first thing we want to do is we want to get the internal temperature of this bigger area right here. So I'm going to put a temperature probe in here, and I'll watch it, and we're trying to get this hunk of meat up to 165 degrees. Once we do that, we'll take it out off the smoker. We're going to wrap it up in some butcher paper, which will help seal in the moisture. Some people use aluminum foil. We're going to use butcher paper, and it's unwaxed pink butcher paper. That's how you know it's the right stuff. And then we'll put it back on, and then we keep checking it. We'll have the temperature probe back in it, and then our end goal is to get the temperature to between 203, 205, and then that starts the breakdown of the process, and then we let the meat rest. So as for right now, we're just going to let this rest right now with the seasonings, and then we will get some plastic wrap on it and put it in the refrigerator until we're ready to go tonight.
It's almost 11 o'clock p.m. Allan has the smoker preheated, and he's unwrapping the brisket. It's time to get this great big brisket put in the smoker.
This will allow us to watch the temperature on the Traeger app, and I'll be able to set an alarm, and it'll tell me when it's at the right time. So we're going to set this temperature probe deep in this thickest piece of the meat. We're going to get it as far in there as we can. Now that the brisket's in the smoker, we've got the temperature probe on. It's coming back up to heat. We're going to go back inside, and I'll show you real quick the Traeger app and all the features it has. It's very handy. The whole smoker is attached to our home Wi-Fi, so I can check the temperature anywhere. Okay, on the app we can see that the current grill temperature is 220 degrees. I've got it set. I want it to be at 225. Our meat right now is at 53. So I'm going to set my goal for 165. Confirm. It's going to load itself, and then it will let me know in the middle of the night if we reach 165 degrees while I'm sleeping. It'll wake me up, and then I will come back out and we'll do the next step. Good morning, it's 5:45. The alarm has just gone off to let me know that the brisket is up to temperature. So we're going to take it off the smoker. We're going to take it inside. We're going to wrap it in the pink butcher paper that I mentioned earlier, and then we'll get it back on the smoker until we get it up to an internal temperature of about 205. It'll take another 5 to 6 hours. Let's see what it looks like. As we can see, the brisket has got a nice crust forming on it. And the whole intent of putting it in the pink butcher paper, like I said, we can use aluminum foil or butcher paper. We're going to use butcher paper. This will help get it through what's called the stall. At 165 degrees, the meat will sit, and it won't get any higher. So when you wrap it you can help preserve the moisture as well as increase the internal temperature. Kind of helps it bake like in the oven, and it'll get it through that stall, and then it'll be able to continue climbing in heat to get to that final temperature that we're looking for. I've got that nice and tight, and we put it back the exact same way that we took it out, with the fat side up. That way it goes back in, it can continue cooking down through. So now that I have the brisket back on the smoker, I am just going to reset my Traeger app. I'm going to check it again in probably 3 hours just to see how everything's going. And we are going to set a target alarm. And like I said, we're looking at that 205 degree range. So we're going to confirm that. So you can see my temperature of the Traeger right now. This is what we put the meat probe back in. So that piece of meat is at 168 degrees. Target 205. It even tells you how many pellets you have left in the hopper. So we'll go back and about 3 hours, and we'll see how this is going. The Traeger app just let me know that we have reached our internal temperature probe. We set a goal, and we are there. And we are currently at about 14.5 hours. So we're gonna go outside and we will take the brisket off of the smoker, and then we're gonna bring it back inside. We'll get a couple more steps before we can enjoy it. Boy, that sure smells good. So we're gonna do one or two things before we take this off. We wanna check the softness of this meat. So I'm gonna go into this hole, and basically with this meat probe, if you puncture through and the meat is nice and soft, then you know that it is done. And this is very tender. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this off of here, and then we'll take it inside.
Allan is getting ready to take this wonderful piece of meat, this tremendously large brisket, off the smoker.
It is hot.
It is very hot. I can't even tell you how wonderful this smells. Let's take it inside.
The brisket is so hot, so I've switched to some better heat-proof gloves, and we're just gonna support this out of here. And the meat is just so soft and tender, it is just bending. So what we wanna do is we want to wrap this. This is a tip that I saw on the Traeger website, because this needs to rest for a minimum of 30 minutes to an hour. We're probably gonna let it sit for an hour. And like I said, it's been on the smoker for a little over 14 hours. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this. We're gonna seal in all of this heat. I'm gonna put my heat-proof gloves back on. And we have a cooler right over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay one towel on the bottom. So this is a trick that a lot of grilling experts use, is you can just use a nice insulated cooler. We're gonna pick this piece of brisket up very gently. We're just gonna put it in here. Now I could have left this sitting in the grill, or I could have taken it and I could have set it in the oven. You just don't want it to be, too hot. So what I want to do is I just want this meat to rest. We're going to put it in this cooler. I've got a towel on the bottom. I'm going to put a towel over the top, and I am just going to put that in there, and that will kind of be like an oven, and it will just continue to soften that meat. And then after about an hour, we'll pull it out and we'll start carving it up, and we'll see how we're doing. All right, the brisket has been resting, so we are going to go ahead and pull it up out of here. And we will put it on the tray, and then we will unwrap it.
It really looks juicy.
It sure does. It is still really, really hot, even though it's been sitting for an hour. But that cooler insulated it. You can see all the moisture that's in there.
Oh, that has a really nice crust on it, doesn't it?
It sure does. And it is ready to go. So I am gonna pick it up very gently and get it over onto the cutting board so that it doesn't fall apart while I'm doing it. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna cut this and we're gonna see how it turned out. You can see it's very wobbly. That's what it's supposed to look like because of all the interior fat. So that's a good sign. And remember, when we initially set this up, this is the point end and then this is the flat end. So there's two different ways. Sometimes people will cut it down underneath here, separate the two muscles. I'm gonna go about a third of the way in, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here, which will separate the point and the flat. And you can just see how juicy that brisket is. So what I'm going to do is I want to flip this over right away on the bottom, put the board down, or I should say put the cut side down on the board, because as soon as you get that air on it, it could start oxidizing the meat, so we don't want that to happen. So if you remember when we set this up, we cut this notch. When this was all laying out, the grain was going this way. So what we want to do is we want to start right here, and we're going to start cutting this brisket this way, and we're going to make nice, long, thin slices. Look at that. The meat is just falling apart. It is so soft and tender. And absolutely, that's why we cut that notch, was so that we could go go across the grain. Now you can see this dark line. This is our smoke line. So the smoke from the smoker penetrated about 1/8 to 1/4 inch on each side.
So you always get that really nice pink smoke ring.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be a barbecue video if you didn't try it. It is great. Oh my goodness. I know what we're having for dinner. Still has a hint of that pepper crust on the outside. And look, so we cooked this fat side up, so you can see all of this small layer of fat that's on the top, and it is just juicy and melted all the way through. Okay, now the point, we had this flat side over here. The grain on the point runs this way, so we are going to slice this all up like this. And it's just Jennifer and I here right now, so even though we've made a 20-pound brisket, we're going to divide it up, and it'll be part of meal prep later on. We'll have so much, just like some of the pulled pork we've made earlier, we will have bags of brisket in the freezer ready to go anytime we want it. Now let's get started cutting this. Now a lot of times people will take the point and make what's called burnt ends. So they will slice this up and cube it up, and then you put it in a foil pan and pour a little barbecue sauce on it and throw it back on the grill and let that barbecue sauce just caramelize. So if you heard people talk about burn ends, this is the piece that they're using.
And here's how the brisket turned out. And we have a pile here that we've made for sandwiches. It's already shredded and ready to go. It smells amazing and it's so delicious.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. It was a 14-hour project, by 14 and a half hours, and I might even have woke Jennifer up real early.
That's okay. I get up early anyway.
Absolutely, but we're going to have this beautiful smoked brisket for many meals to come.
We sure are. It is absolutely delicious and smells so good. I hope you give this a try on your smoker and realize just how easy it is and how delicious it can be. I would love for you to subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to click the thumbs up button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next time.